Hello, I'm Jessica Ashley, and you are here on Single Mom Nation. Today we have an amazing expert with us, Jarrett Arthur, who is a self-defense instructor and educator, a woman who has fiercely helped other moms get powerful and feel good and empowered rather than be fearful about things that might happen to them. And Jarrett has created Mamas, a great program, Mothers Against Malicious Acts, to provide self-defense techniques geared toward mothers and caregivers. And in the process has really helped those moms to feel good about walking in the world, even where there may be threats, taking care of their kids, and standing taller. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jarrett. I'm really happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm absolutely thrilled to have this opportunity.
And today we're going to focus on single moms, of course, and mothers who aren't even single moms, but they are the primary people who are with their kids all the time. And they need to feel like they are empowered, especially in vulnerable situations. And single moms can feel that way often. So tell me a little bit about why your calling is to work with moms and to help women want to feel better about protecting themselves and their kids.
I think really at its core, one of a mother's truly most important jobs is to be able to protect her kids. And certainly moms have that instinctual, biological mama bear, inside of them. But, just simply having the mama bear instinct and knowing, oh, I would do absolutely anything necessary to protect my kids. That's fantastic, but it's not the same thing as having actual skills and having a game plan and having confidence in both those skills and the game plan that, okay, if this really goes down, these are the steps that I need to take to protect my kid. And that's something that I have not found a self-defense program out there that caters specifically to moms. And tactically speaking, self-defense training is very different from what moms need because self-defense training is focused, well, it's focused on the self. I mean, the name of it is implied in the title, self-defense. And when you're a mom with your kids, particularly if you're a mom alone with your kids, without anybody with you, the world of self-defense changes because it's not just about you keeping yourself safe and then getting away. It's about protecting your kids and shielding your kids and making sure that that you're addressing this threat tactically speaking from a standpoint when you're with your kids, and that is totally different. So the need for that is out there. It's been out there, and over the course of my teaching career, I was teaching a lot of men and women and kids and all different types of mixed classes. And all the principles that I was teaching was self-defense training. And moms would always ask me, well, what if I'm with my kids and this happens? What if my kids are in the car seat in the back of the car and this happens? And there really isn't a program out there that really addresses that. And so that is where I came from. I recognized a need and a lack of information, and then I came up with Mama.
And so, really, I mean, we talk all the time about moms being multitaskers, and this is just like the most intense multitasking you might ever do. Is if you're in a situation that's some kind of traumatic or crisis situation in terms of protecting your kids, protecting yourself, and warding off as much of the harm as you possibly can.
Yeah,
And that is
absolutely.
really different than self-defense. I love that you distinguish those two things. You came to this a nationally ranked black belt, one of the highest ranked female instructors in Krav Maga. Is that correct?
Yes, that is
But
correct.
you didn't start the self-defense. Like it was your mama who really convinced you to get started in self-defense, right?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is it's really come full circle. I was a nationally ranked athlete my entire life, but I had never done any martial arts at all. I had never done any combat training, um, none of that. This was something that my mom saw a flyer for self-defense and thought that I should take it because I was going back to school to get my master's degree. And I was not interested in taking the classes at all. And she just really sort of pushed me into it. And within the first couple of minutes of training, it was like a light bulb went off. And it just, the training spoke to me in such a deep way, not as an athlete, actually, as a woman, that it was completely, utterly life changing, life altering. And I've been teaching self defense and training in self defense pretty much ever since that class.
I love, like, I have this idea in my head that it's like some cheesy course in a church basement with a lot of moms, like 50-year-old moms in their jeans, and that it just changed your whole career. That might not be the situation at all, but I have that idea in my head, and that it changed your whole career because it spoke to you emotionally. Now, do you
That it
tell me a
definitely
little?
did.
So tell me a little bit about what happens in the classes when you're working with moms. You say that the emotional part of it is really the biggest thing. I always have a concern, like, are we creating more fear in moms and in women, or are we actually addressing the fear? So can you talk a little bit about what happens emotionally to help women feel like they're walking taller when they walk out of your courses?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there really is a pretty common misconception that self-defense training will increase the fear, will make you more fearful, more paranoid, more anxious because you're actually, addressing the situations. And I think that oftentimes women, they get comfortable in their own personal state of denial that it won't happen, it can't happen. I live in a nice neighborhood and I drive the nice car and I'm in this socioeconomic bracket and in this age bracket and I'm with my kids. Nobody would ever attack a mom with kids and all these things that roll into the denial. And I do think that the denial can run really deep and can provide a false sense of security. And so I find that that potential students sometimes are wary of starting the training because, uh-oh, now I have to actually shed the denial and get to a point where I acknowledge the fact that violence does not respect any boundaries and that absolutely it could happen to you. And that is a really scary thing. So this misconception that just simply shedding that denial and acknowledging the reality of the situation, that will increase the fear. I have not found that at all, not personally, and not with any of the hundreds of students that I've taught over the last 10 years. The fear is there. No matter what you tell yourself to try and pacify yourself, the fear is really there. And it hasn't gone away just because you tell yourself that it won't happen, it can't happen. Women know deep down underneath, you may have those what if feelings when you're in certain situations. The fear is there. So the goal in training is to get it out in the open and to address it, not to cover it up with layers of denial, but to really get it out in the open and to learn how to use that fear to your advantage. Fear in the form of anxiety and paranoia is not what you want in terms of self-defense because that anxiety and paranoia can make you ineffective. So it can make you freeze up and it can paralyze you. Fear in and of itself is actually something that we want because it can lead to action. If you feel fear, that triggers you to A, recognize that something is going on early and ahead of time, and then B, do something about it. So I think that's actually a really comforting thing for students. It certainly was for me in my training, is to be told, you know what, we don't need you to get rid of the fear. In fact, it's there to stay and we want it, we can use it. Once you learn how to really welcome that fear and that it is your friend, it becomes a lot less scary and a lot less anxiety provoking. And that really is the name of the game. How do you acknowledge the fear? How do you let it be there? How do you use it to your advantage? And I think for students, I mean that really is all there is to it. Oh, wait a minute, fear is good. Okay, now this is something that I can actually use, and it becomes less scary, even though the fear is still there.
And I think when we're talking about women who are in a really vulnerable time in their life, or they're transitioning their life, where they live, their family situation, their jobs, like everything is up in the air, using fear as a tool can be really powerful. It can be a real reframing about how you walk through your life, not just in and out of a classroom door.
Absolutely. I mean, fear is in everything that we do. I mean, you have fear in your relationship. What if you're not with the right person? What if you are with the right person? And just at the most basic level, fear in your career, fear in your body, like any goal that you want to accomplish or any desire that you have. There's always the fear of failure, not making the right choices. And absolutely, in the self-defense context, learning how to acknowledge that fear and then use it as motivation and action driving, it absolutely relates to all other aspects of your life. And that's what I've seen both for myself and for my students.
I really want to talk a little bit about how this specifically applies to single moms. So moms maybe going through a divorce or a breakup or entering into parenthood on their own. It can be a really vulnerable time. And if you have a partner who you are separating from, there might be lots of feelings of vulnerability about being hurt, about navigating all of these things, your home on your own again, or for the first time. And so I really want to talk about whether the threat is your ex or the threat is just this overwhelming feeling of transition. What tips might you have for women who are feeling really nervous about the whole of their lives and their own safety? What are some things that they might do? Obviously, take a course in self-defense, but what are just a few things that they can do to start the process of feeling empowered?
Um, well, I do think that there are two very different parts of your question. One, like you mentioned, people that are fearful of their ex or the person that they're separating from, and that is a whole separate category in terms of being diligent about recognizing and paying attention to red flags in the partner that you're separating from, looking at behaviors and really addressing them in a way that you can stay safe and that you stay ahead of the eight ball, not reactive but proactive if your partner is exhibiting any red flag signs. But the other piece of the question is the fear about just simply the transition, and that is something that I think is present in every single woman who's making that transition. Maybe not every single, but for the most part, everybody that, like you said, the fear of transition, the fear of now being on their own and being home alone. And for a lot of women, I think having a partner in your home is a source of physical comfort. Because I've heard that training with women, and I mean, even with my self-defense background, my husband is 6'2", 220, just huge, and he's got his military special forces and law enforcement training. And I'll tell you, I feel a lot safer when he's home and when he has to travel for work. Even with all of my knowledge, I still feel that fear come up.
And
Yeah,
a black
even with my yeah, exactly. And 10 years of doing this and having a game plan and knowing everything, I'm still checking my doors 2 or 3 times, and I still wake up in the middle of the night when I hear that sound. And so that fear is definitely there. Certainly, um, really educating yourself in terms of ways that you can, little tiny ways that you can use to exist in the world in a safer way. And we're not talking big modifications to your life or big um, behaviors that suck a lot of time and energy. We're just talking about little things that you can do, and really learning how to exist in the world in a safer way. I found both for me and for my students, it really is incredibly powerful, particularly in this transition when everything feels like it's up in the air, and you're really unsure of yourself. Just simply taking proactive steps to be safer, something as simple as really making a pact with yourself that when you're outside, you're walking from point A to point B, from your house to your car, from your car to your house, from work to your car, etc., that you put your devices away, that you're not on a phone call, that you're not texting, that you're not emailing. This is common
Really
sense,
paying
right?
attention to your surroundings.
Yeah. and this is totally common sense, but I mean, if I had a quarter for every time I was outside now, and I see some woman, like walk into her car with her head down, on her device. I mean, and we all know not to do this. But this is, I mean, just a little tiny thing that you can do, to make yourself significantly safer. And not just randomly doing it, telling yourself, this is going to make me safer. Um, Let me put my device away. That feels good and it feels proactive. And, so locking your doors immediately, not getting into your car, closing the car door, and then putting on your seatbelt and going through your purse and organizing stuff and, making sure nothing's going to fall off the passenger side seat and then locking your doors. It's close your door and lock your door. Being diligent about locking the doors to your home. So just all in these little ways. And the transition itself is scary. I mean, you're totally changing one big aspect of your life. But I think regaining some control of your life by taking proactive steps to be safer is a huge way to feel much more confident during this difficult time.
I'm also really interested in single moms that I meet, particularly those who are in the process of divorce, who are going to court or mediation and going into situations where there is so much at stake. How they hold themselves really reflects how vulnerable and fearful they feel. So I meet a lot of single moms early in the process who are hunched over. And that really came to mind when I saw you giving Ellen DeGeneres tips about pulling back shoulders. I mean, hers was a silly situation that you were advising her on, but the tips were real. And that is pull
Yeah.
your shoulders back, stand with your feet apart in a really steady, sturdy stance, and evoke that confidence. Let that come out. And it's amazing how often I think we can catch ourselves doing this, especially when times are tough, and just doing
Yeah.
this and breathing out will help us to feel like, all right, I got this.
It has actually been scientifically proven now that holding a more powerful stance really does actually affect your mentality and your emotions in a positive way. And it's this movement of standing up tall is now actually starting to gain ground with a lot of professional women. There was what was the article? I am not going to think about it right now, but it really is in the world of professional women before going into an important business meeting, to really take a few moments and stand tall. And you are absolutely right. It kind of can work in reverse. So even if you're, we say fake it till you make it. Even if you're feeling small, forcing yourself to stand tall, even if you don't feel it, really can make you feel more confident. Absolutely. So certainly for single moms, before they're going into a situation where they already know they're going to be prone to shrinking and feeling smaller, take a few seconds if you have it, a few minutes really if you have it. Go to the bathroom, into the bathroom, stand in front of the mirror so you're by yourself and you don't have to talk yourself up in front of anybody, and just fake it. Stand up tall, pull your shoulders back, puff your chest out, look at yourself in the mirror and make eye contact. And it is hugely helpful. From a self-defense standpoint, not only does it make you more confident, but it also tells a very important message to anybody who's looking at you as a potentially easy target. And that's what criminals really, really look for, easy targets. And what makes for an easy target? Well, somebody who's not paying attention, which we just talked about, and somebody who they think they're going to be able to really beat down and take advantage of, somebody who's not going to fight back. And between two different people that they may be looking at to target, the person who is round and looking down and who looks smaller and potentially weaker or more fragile, that's going to be the person that they're going to go to. So from a self-defense standpoint as well, just simply walking tall, even if you don't feel tall, really tells an important message to somebody that you are absolutely willing and prepared to fight back, and you're going to give them hell. So you're not the person to choose.
And and when we speak of multitasking, we have to always remember that moms are giving a message to kids. It doesn't mean that we need to be perfect, but I think in all of this, we have to remember that our kids are part of the story. And our kids are going to be at some point up against bullying, at some point up against things that are bigger than them. And so learning from their parents how to stand tall and walk confidently is a great message that I think we also want to be passing on, right?
Yes, absolutely. And there's actually, I actually teach something called the Gumby game with kids, and there's a little video on my YouTube channel of it. It's a really fun, hands-on way to teach this message. Simply walking around with a tall posture gives the message to your kids because they're watching what you're doing and they learn simply by watching. But a really fun little hands-on way to do it is so as a mom, you are going to be really rubbery like Gumby and get first into sort of like a, head down, rolled up position. And your kids, if they're younger and shorter, you can also do it kneeling, can come and they physically mold your body into a confident shape. So they come and they grab your shoulders and they pull your shoulders back and they physically lift your head and they straighten your back with their hands. And it's a really, really, really fun hands-on way. I mean, the older kids might not be so into it, but certainly for the younger kids, it's really a fun hands-on way that they can learn how to really be confident in their body by playing it out with you and your body.
I don't want to skip over this this these women, I don't mean women like us who have been in situations where they have been emotionally or physically or otherwise abused by their partner and are leaving the situation. And I think it's you made a really important distinction between women who are feeling vulnerable and women who are actually they are threatened by the person that they're leaving. And we know that there statistics say women are far more likely to be hurt or to be killed by their partner after they leave. And
Yes.
really debunking the whole myth that women should leave when often women don't leave because they're feeling scared. So let's just, for a moment, address a situation. You've worked with women who are survivors of domestic abuse and other kinds of abuse. I'm sure there are many more women who haven't spoken out, who come to your courses, who share that story to some degree. Let's talk a little bit about how finding ways to empower themselves, particularly through physical courses and mentorship from someone like you, can really serve women well who are in that situation.
Absolutely. So we take a lot of precautions depending on the situation, and here's where there are a lot of legal aspects of it, and depending on how dangerous the situation is for women. And I'm certainly not a law enforcement officer, and I'm not a counselor, so I just want to make that distinction. That I have absolutely worked with survivors and victims of domestic violence, but I'm not a trained counselor, and I'm definitely not trained law enforcement as well. So we take a lot of precautions with women who are in violent relationships and who are trying to leave, because you're absolutely right. That is the most dangerous time for a victim of domestic violence is in the act of leaving. But for women who are in a place where they can safely get to some training, it is incredibly important and incredibly empowering and also incredibly terrifying for women to come in and train and really learn how to generate power and strength in their bodies. And that's the great thing about this system, is that it has nothing to do with your actual size or your fitness ability or your athleticism. The beauty of this system of Mama self-defense, which is based on an Israeli self-defense system called Krav Maga, is that anybody can do it. It's very straightforward. And it's also really aggressive. And this is something that I found to be one of the best tools for women that are trying to reclaim their lives. Is with all of the fear and with all of the being intimidated and with all of the pain comes a lot of anger as well. And giving women the opportunity and the training to tap into that and turn it into aggression when they're hitting the pads and when they're in training and defending themselves, it is completely transformational. Um, so yeah, to answer your question, it really is incredibly important. And if even if you're not able to get actual self-defense training, simply reclaiming your body by committing to working out and getting into shape, doing something to increase your strength, to increase your fitness. I really have found that there is a really strong correlation between victims of domestic violence and women who tend to be not to eat very well and tend to be inactive as well, and not worrying. And we're not talking about having to go run a marathon. We're just talking about moving your body and feeling strength in your body and feeling your feet on the ground. That's what you have. Your body is what you have, and learning how to trust your body, whether it's just through working out and feeling good, or in a self-defense class, learning how to strike and going, you know what? I can actually generate big time power with these strikes. And when I learn how to do it, and when I learn where to strike, that is a huge part of reclaiming your life and regaining your power.
And I think it's really important to remember that power begets power. And so when we feel like we can accomplish one thing, when we can master one strike, or we can do it to the best of our ability, it sets off this thinking that, oh, maybe I can do this other thing, and maybe I can do this other thing. And it's really kind of contagious within our thinking and within our bodies. And that's a really
Yes.
important trajectory to be on as women in any situation.
Yep, I 100% agree.
I think that we also need to address, when we're talking about single moms, a lot of women who are going back into the dating world and they haven't been there in a while. And I know that you have written some great tips about how to be safer in yourself when you are dating. I'd love for you to share a bit of those. This is a really big issue to me. It's something that I have written about quite a bit, and I feel like it's really important for women to not check in places on social media, to have somebody that they talk to and tell when they're going out with somebody, check in with when they're home. Maybe you can talk a little bit about quickly about a few tips that you have for women who are re-entering or entering the dating scene, and safety has not been something at top of mind.
Yeah, this is actually something that we've been seeing a lot of over the last several years. Dating violence and violence in new relationships is nothing new. But certainly the the how do I say this nicely? The complete absence of privacy now that people are just not respecting their privacy, and they're not respecting anybody else's privacy online, is something that's so huge. And as social media continues to just sort of be commonplace in our life, where maybe 5 years ago, definitely 10 years ago, the stuff that we'd be sharing online, people would think you were absolutely nuts to be sharing that stuff. And now it's what everybody does. You just, you share your status and what you're doing and where you're going, and all these other things. And it is incredibly important to remember that the footprint you leave online um, gives bad people really important information about you. And it is really easy to find out where you live and what you look like and your kids' names.
And the
Um, you
schools they
know,
go
and
to. I mean, it's easy
and
to
this,
find out a lot of information.
yeah,
So
a
I
lot
have
of
these
information.
like, oh hell no boundaries for myself. But I think it seems like what you're saying is maybe a hell no is don't give everybody that you go out with access to yourself on social media. And on social media, be very protective of your privacy settings and what other people can see.
Yes, absolutely. And even within that, I mean, keep in mind that the majority of violent crimes against women are committed by somebody that the woman has met at least one time. So, having different layers of security and privacy online, having your real inner circle, and these are your best friends and your family members and people you really, really trust, they can see certain things. And, that coworker that you pass by in the office, or that guy you met at the gym, they're not a friend. They're not somebody that needs to be privy to everything that you're doing and where you're going. So I think it's important because oftentimes women, um, I think, feel like the real violent crimes are committed by the guy in the bushes with the hoodie on and the sunglasses and the baseball cap, and we do see that happening, absolutely. But the majority of violent crimes against women are committed by somebody that she's met at least one time. It can even be that guy in the grocery store that you see every Tuesday, and you make that joke, "Are you stalking me? I see you everywhere." That's somebody that you've met, that is potentially on the list of people. So really being extra vigilant and extra guarded about that. Definitely not advertising where you are, not advertising your routine as well. Because people learn your routine. Okay, on Tuesday she goes to the gym, and on Wednesday she goes to this coffee shop before she goes to work. That's really a big one too. And certainly if you're going out on a date with somebody, not just letting somebody that you trust know, as in this is where we're going, and this is when I'm meeting him, and this is when I'm going to be home, and then remembering to text them when you do get home so that they know. But also sending trusted people, if it's online dating, links to their profile and their photos, links to their
Yes,
social media account, so
that's a good
that
one.
so that if something does go wrong, they have somewhere to start, and it's not a wild goose chase. They have information to give to authority figures immediately, right away. If it is somebody that you've met online, absolutely 100%, I suggest making a rule that you don't meet anybody out unless you've done a video chat with them. It's so easy to video chat now, and it's also so easy to falsify photos. And we get a lot of information from seeing somebody live, and talking to them and carrying on a conversation. We get a lot of information about who they are. It really speaks to our gut instinct. So just simply looking at a photograph, even texting them, you get no information from that. Chatting online, you get no information. Insist on a video chat before you actually agree to meet somebody out. Is another big one that I think is super, super important for women, going into the dating world.
And practicing trusting your gut instinct, I think, is really important too. I
Yeah,
love
that's huge.
I love all these tips. I think that it seems like you are really helping women to take care of themselves, to feel good about themselves, to feel powerful, and to transfer that to their kids, not only if they're in a situation where they really are protecting their kids' lives or their kids' well being, but also to help them walk through the world in a more confident way. I know that there are lots of people who are going to be watching who are going to want to come to your class. If they're not in California, I want everybody to know that you should visit Jarrett at her website. The website has come up here on the screen. You have DVDs, ebooks, you have lots of great information on your website. So people should join you, whether it's virtually or connect with you on Facebook or elsewhere to get your great tips over and over. And I would love to offer the opportunity that if people have questions, to leave them in the comments. We can always have Jarrett come back and answer all of those questions. Is there anything else you want to add that I'm not saying about how people can find you and your great work?
No, but I do want to add that I write a weekly blog, and I also guest blog for a lot of different people, and that is really great free information. So just educate yourself. Honestly, I mean, there's just so much. There's just a lack of information, and there's also a lot of misinformation out there. So really, just take it upon yourself. It's your responsibility as a woman. It is definitely your responsibility as a mother. It's not just about protecting yourself and your kids. It's also about protecting yourself for your kids. If something happens to you, that it's unfathomable the effect that it would have on your children. So anytime that you may tell yourself, well, this is silly, this is overly cautious, this is being hypervigilant, understand that, you have to understand crime is out there and it happens. And if something happens to you, even if something doesn't physically directly happen to your kids, it's just it's It's terrible and devastating, and unfortunately, I've seen it way too much in my career. You owe it to your kids to really learn and educate yourself and get trained, and then pass that information along.
We love kick-ass women, and even more, we love kick-ass women who encourage other women to kick ass. And you're doing that physically, emotionally, in the community. So thank you for all of your work and for joining us today. Everybody, please visit jarrettarthur.com, find out about what she's doing and how you can get in touch and help yourself take good care and take good care of your kids. Thank you, Jarrett.
Thank you so much for having me on.